I had ordered, Joe, part of the reason I was late tonight, I had ordered some root beer, some adult root beer for this new episode, and on top of that, they didn't deliver it. I'd ordered root beer, and I didn't want to just be weird and get alcoholic root beer, and so what I did was I thought I would get some Jack Daniels with the root beer. The guy showed up with the Jack Daniels and no root beer. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are here. It's me.
Awesome.
It's Joe. We are here. Dude, I can't remember. Episode, 15, 20, 40. It feels lovely to be back. And you have a guest with you, but that's not the only guest, Joe. What's going on this evening?
Definitely. Today we have two guests. So first of all, let me introduce you to my daughter, my lovely daughter, Thais. And she is here for a very, very special reason, which we're going to tell right now. Do you know what it is?
What is it? What is it? Tell me. What is it?
So today, of course you know. So today our guest here is one person that kind of brought us together some very special moments. So we're talking about the creator of the show Starship, the adventures of the Starship Coconut.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell some stories later on, but let's bring David to the show.
Let's bring him on. I'm excited. Bring him on. Hit us with the 3-shot. Let's go. Welcome.
Awesome.
Hello, my friend.
How is it going, dude? I was so excited. Like when he introduced just your persona, right? I didn't get a chat to you today. I was so excited. I know that we will learn something from you and just your creative brain. But I just like the guest tuning in now. This is my first time meeting you. So tell us about yourself. We'd love to know more about you, David.
Cool. Well, my name is David Boda. I'm an independent media creator, producer, storyteller, dad of two.
Wow.
I created the Adventures of the Starship Coconut, a science fiction audio drama adventure podcast series. That's been running on Frequency Podcast Network since, how long has it been now? 2019.
Nice.
So it's been on hiatus for a little bit, but it was kind of one of my first major projects that kind of led into a world of media creation and storytelling, and just learning how to tell awesome stories. I mean, we could talk about the show if you want, but I'm not the host, so I'm going to let you do the hosting.
Hey, no doubt, no doubt. Joe, when you first introduced me to him and I had a chance to listen to him on Spotify, there is just no way, if you hadn't given me insight, I would have thought that this was the man, and there was like such a small production compared to what you hear. Like, if you get time, ladies and gentlemen, after you speak with us, check his podcast out, check this show out. I guarantee you will be completely amazed by the quality. And you hear his sexy, silky, smooth voice now. Wait till you hear what he does with the creativity there. So yeah, Joe, how did you even meet David? How did this all come out?
I wish we could play just introduction of one episode so I can get the taste of what that sounds, because it is such an amazing show. And I'm gonna already get it started because my daughter's here.
Yeah.
And I was telling David before we started the show. I started listening because I met David. So I was studying in a college. He was working there. We have this meeting. He was kind of a career coach. I don't
nice.
exactly the role you had there. But then we had some very good conversations, and he mentioned his podcast. So I went home, I started listening, and then I didn't finish the whole all the episodes that it was available. And then later on, like actually earlier this year, something made me remind the podcast, and I started listening to this.
So little anymore.
Yeah, not that little anymore. And very funny. She loved, just as me. She loved the show, and we created this special moment between father and daughter.
Nice.
Where we would just stay together, put the headset, and listen together. While we were in the car or while I was putting her to bed, we would just stay together, listen, and imagining talking about the show and how this character looked like, or what about this, what about that, and create that theorism in our minds and having these discussions. You want to say something about the show later? Okay.
That's so cool. What does that feel like on your end too? Like, I know obviously you created this type of story for entertainment, but to hear that literally families are enjoying this stuff together, it's got to feel good for you. I know when I create something, you'd love to hear these stories. How does that resonate with you as a creator?
Well, it really resonates with me a lot because I really created this show. It was honestly, it was out of a university project. I mean, I went to school for media and communications at McMaster University in Hamilton, and I had a third year audio production class, and so we had an option for one of our assignments was either to create I'm trying to remember what it was now. It was a music track using like a digital audio workstation program, or we could create a podcast. And I said, well, I grew up listening to audio dramas when I was like 8 years old.
Wow.
Here's 8 years old David. I was in the basement playing with Lego, making spaceships out of Lego. And then I would be listening to some sort of audio drama or a Star Wars book on tape. Like, I'm a 90s kid. So, we actually had to use the tapes. And so I would just be sitting there listening, imagining with my mind, trying to see Luke Skywalker or Han Solo, or I got into Star Trek a bit later on. And so I just thought, I want to create something that my 8-year-old self would just absolutely be a huge fanboy over. And so I dragged my brother in on it, Stephen Boda. He's the other half of Team Coconut. And we just got together and I said, I need some extra voices. I can only do so many voices. I need your voice. Come on. I'm going to wear myself out here. And so we just threw all these character names around, and we saw it as just having fun together. Yeah. We were just doing what we used to do as kids. And so when I hear that it brought you guys together as well, I mean, that makes me super happy, because that's exactly what it did for my brother and I. I was writing the scripts just to make my brother laugh. I mean, that was the entire point. What crazy situation can I put these people in and then make my brother laugh? And I mean, when you hear the first episode, it was just like, there was a lot of, potty humor in there in the first one, and, being ingested by a giant, planet-sized asteroid-eating monster, and then getting thrown up again, and then like farting noises, and, but then it turned into something much bigger than that, because we said, hey, let's make some more episodes. So it turned into this bigger thing. Yeah.
Well, let me dive a little bit in there because
Sure.
you work with your brother,
Mhm.
and you, from my understanding, you are kind of the writer and the
Mhm.
director, and of course you do some voices, some characters. And your brother works more on the production side. He do the side effects, the music,
Mhm.
the editing on everything. How did you guys come up with these arrangements? How did you decide who is going to do what, and how do you find? Because I'm asking this because I have two brothers. I am the older
Yeah.
one, and whenever I try
Mamãe,
to
quero
work
take
with
it, por favor.
people, like, we would argue, we would have some troubles. I wouldn't be able to work with them, but you did quite nicely, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think my brother and I growing up, we always were creating things together anyway. I mean, I grew up, I was, telling you earlier, I grew up on the stage. I was a theater actor. And so I grew up doing musical theater. I grew up singing, acting, dancing, just creating stories. And then I would come home and we had one of those play school. I don't know if you remember these play school radio tape recorders, and it had a microphone and you could actually record. So we would play music and make like a mixtape, and then we would like just
That's cool.
record ourselves making voices in the back. I think we called it like Cat TV or something like that.
That's
Something
interesting.
ridiculous. Yeah, and so we just kind of grew up doing silly stuff together. And then I was going to school for multimedia. I mean, that's a whole backstory in and of itself, but
Mhm.
how I got into that. But maybe we'll get into that. But then my brother is in music. He went the more music route.
Oh, okay.
He's a professional
Mm.
pipe organist. Yes, there
Mm.
is such a thing. He plays one of those
Interesting.
giant pipe organs, Phantom of the Opera, Captain Nemo, from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. He's playing this huge pipe organ. And so, but then he went back to school for audio production because he wanted to
Mm.
record himself. And he went to Sheridan College for this program they only had for like 1 or 2 years called Massive. And Massive was about creating music and audio for film, television, and video games.
Hmm.
And so he went back to there. I mean, he learned from the guy who was, recording Michael Jackson's albums back in
Yep.
the day. It was one of his professors.
Wow, that's really
Um,
cool.
so he learned all the stuff that needed Pro Tools and Logic and all these
Mhm.
different programs. And so he got way better at recording than me. And I just said, well, I'm good at writing and I'm good at coming up with stories and scripts and creative ideas. And he's really good with the audio, and we can both do voices. So why don't he actually said to me, let's just keep making the show. Why don't we make like 10 episodes and see what happens? And so
Yeah.
that's
That's
came.
crazy too. It works that you guys had those kind of unique passions too, right? Shouts out, no telling. After hearing this, obviously you both are very creative, right? No
Well, thank you.
doubt about that. And you can now I can kind of even hear different things in my mind now that you've mentioned that. Like I'm with the writing, he's with the sound engineering. Because I tell you what, the sound quality, and that's where I came from in my background. I love music, Acid Pro, Pro Tools, Fruity Loops. I'm very familiar with a lot of those
Nice.
tools back in the day. So I love the fact of this. When I was taking some writing classes in college, my instructor told us this story about where they did team writing exercise. And it's a joke about this gentleman who got paired with a woman, and she had this certain story she wanted to tell, and she wrote it, and it was more of a fantasy and a love story, Dear John letter. And the gentleman who was her partner was very much like you, Starship, Star Wars, and future, and very, very unique. But the way that they did is they start writing. One person would write for about a week. They'd hand it to the next person. They would start writing it. But what ended up happening is they wrote both two different stories, and each time they would hand it off, the stories would smash and collide. And so she'd write her love story about John, and then he would kill John with the spaceship, in the next story. And then she would blow up the spaceship, because it was poor, And so did you guys ever have any of that where you wrote an episode and he's like, I don't want to be that character? Did you guys ever have any back and forth or?
We did the farther we went on. I mean, the first episode, it's kind of funny because the first episode I just created in college just for a joke. Like I just thought this would be hilarious if I created this. It was way over and above, what the professor was asking us to do. He was like 10 minutes long. I make like this 30-minute long space epic. And we're recording it in the really bad sound booth at the college, and like we didn't know anything, and it sounds like terrible. We had to re-record pretty much the entire first episode when my brother actually knew what he was doing and had some plugins available
at that point.
But absolutely. So, but no, we didn't really ever clash on the creative vision. I think it was more like he was so involved from the get-go, because we were just sitting in my in my parents' backyard, and we were just talking. I'm like, I think I'm going to make this thing, but I just need to come up with some character names, and we just riff off each other. And he's like, oh, I'm like, well, I'm kind of thinking the whole universe is made out of food, because I like food. And he's like, oh, okay, that's cool. So I'm like, well, maybe the captain could be called something food related. He's like, well, what about like Captain Kiwi? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, Captain Kiwi. And like, what would he sound like? And then my brother would just be like, well, maybe he sounds like he has a stick up his butt all the time. so then he does Captain Kiwi. But then I'm like, who else would be on this ship? And I'm like, okay, well, there'll probably be like a badass chick who can like kick everyone's butt, like Natasha Romanoff or something like that, and we'll kind of make her, because I mean they're all like stereotypes and tropes. Let's be honest. And then I'm like, oh, we got to have the surfer dude, the guy who just doesn't give a crap about anything and is just there. So he's like, hey, dude, I'm like the surfer dude, Flash, and he's like, he doesn't care. He's the stupid one, And then you have to have the robot, and it's just like there's certain character tropes that you have to stick into science fiction. And,
absolutely, I think you did really well with that too. And I liked that you didn't like tiptoe, like you leaned into it. Like, and amateurs don't tend to do that. They try to think that it's a very unique persona, but you lean into that, and I love that about the show too.
Yeah, just lean into it. I just feel like let's have some fun with this. I mean, we just were doing it just as two brothers to try to make each other laugh. And really, honestly, if I had written the show knowing what I know now about storytelling, because I really wanted to learn how to do this well, I probably would have made a lot of different decisions going into it. But I wasn't thinking about marketing. I wasn't thinking about, the larger, I don't know, like the larger universe and how everything's going to work out, or business stuff. And honestly, the business stuff, like, it's still a bit of a mystery to me, to be honest, because podcasting is in a weird spot. It's like certain genres really do. It's sort of like it's talking heads, a lot of the time.
That is a big part of it.
And it's easy to produce. And like you said, you come into it and you're talking and you're going back and forth, kind of like what you guys are doing, and like that's great because it's easy to do. Like in a way,
exactly.
You come up with some subjects, you bounce some stuff off each other. What I'm doing is like I'm making a Hollywood movie.
Yeah, essentially,
without the visuals is basically, and that's tough to keep going. It's tough to keep going.
And I bet. Can you guys?
Yeah. Oh, you cut out a little right there.
I was having some issues with audio here, but now it's fine. One thing that I will point out, my background, it's the show. So all the characters. So Captain Kiwi is the first one, then Pablo, and then
got it here.
Flash, Flash, and Natasha.
Natasha, that's right.
So
and then there's the villains on the other side.
So it's kind of the right side. The left side's the good people, the good guys. The right side are the bad guys.
Well, maybe I should give the audience a bit of an idea of what the show's about.
Do it.
Just
absolutely.
Kind of give you the pitch. Like I've got the elevator pitch and all this stuff. So like, basically, the show is about the worst starship crew in the entire galaxy. And the galaxy is entirely, basically, if the Starship Enterprise is the flagship of the fleet, these guys are like at the very, very bottom. They're all the cast-offs, the misfits, the people who are just not very good at their jobs, or just kind of weird and all over the place. So Captain Kiwi, he's kind of, how do I describe him? He's a guy who wants to do amazing things, but he sort of has an inferiority complex constantly. He's constantly questioning himself, but he's like, I want to do more. I want to be this amazing captain, but he's just kind of failing at it all the time. And then you've got the second officer, who's Natasha, and Natasha Lux is what I call her, and she's from a planet where everybody can change shapes, basically, and change skin colors. I didn't really get into that into the show too much, and she's just a kick butt girl, but she's got some anger issues, basically, where she just thinks that everyone is completely incompetent except for her. And so she is very competent, and everyone else is kind of dumb. And then you've got the pilot, who's Flash Borden. And Flash Borden's dad is like super, super rich. He's the head of the Galactic Burger Company, which is like the big McDonald's or Burger King of the galaxy, where everybody gets their burgers from. And he just doesn't care about anything. He basically was told he has to be somebody growing up. And he's like, I just don't care, man. I just want to have fun and go around the galaxy. And then you've got Pablo, and Pablo is a Teflon, and he's a basically a robot who was supposed to do what he was programmed to do, but ended up having a completely different purpose in life that he didn't know about. That's one of the episodes. You can go watch that one, where he finds out that he actually has more of a purpose than he thought. So he's the last of the Teflacons. That happens in one of the episodes. So it's kind of like, yes, the Cylons, Battlestar Galactica, of course, that's kind of a reference to that. And then there's the villain. There's all the villains, and then they're fighting up against a whole bunch of different crazy villains. One guy is called Space Beard. As you can see, I have a beard, and so he's named after me. And he's sort of your, John Cleese, he's like, how do I do this? Hello, wonderful to meet you. Space Beard here. Everybody's talking like this, doing my best John Cleese impression. And he's a space wizard, and he just likes to have fun and just destroy everybody's lives. And then there's Dr. Drool, who's like the ultimate, like stereotypical super villain who's constantly trying to make weapons and destroy the entire galaxy. And he's like, oh, yes, Robert. He talks like this. And he sort of is crazy and is always giving crazy speeches. And that's who, Dr. Drool. He's totally crazy. And then he's got his assistant, who's a mongoose and is very monotone. It's sort of like that. Who's that character from Emperor's New Groove who just, is very, very monotone and kind of has that one. He's like, oh, boss, do we have to do this again? And so it's like a very... There's a lot of tropes in there from science fiction, from popular culture, but it's my show, so I can make whatever I want. So.
Yeah, no, of course. I like you draw the inspiration from things that you enjoyed growing up too, right? And I
Star
think
Wars,
that you still make it
Trek.
unique. I think you gave a hint there. I was gonna ask, like, which character do you feel like kind of represents you out of the show?
Well, the funny thing is,
can I add to that question? Because
yeah.
I was listening to the Coco Cast, which is a kind of a side podcast
behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, and we were talking about the inspirations and how the characters look like to you or to your brother. Mm-hmm. So, to what Jeremy was saying, which character looked like to you? But I'm sorry, I think I got lost on my question.
Well, I can answer that first question.
Yeah. No, because my something that I was thinking earlier. So, which character looks like to you, and how they relate to your real life? Like, to me, when I look at you and I look at the show, like, it seems that somehow you created your character, your wife's character, because your wife's also plays in the show. So, how does that relate to the show? Your real life to the show?
See, it's been so long since I kind of wrote all these episodes, but what I found was. The farther you go, the more you learn and kind of the better you get. And especially when it comes into character-driven storytelling. At first I just created them as tropes, I'll be honest. And I just kind of said, hey, I think it'd be funny if we had a captain who's just incompetent, but is trying to pretend that he isn't. But then the more, you can't help but create things that sort of do kind of because it comes from my mind, it comes from my imagination, it comes from my psyche or whatever you want to call it. And the more I thought about the characters and their motivations, the more I realized each one of these characters is a different part of me, actually, in kind of a way. So I know with Captain Kiwi, there definitely was, and maybe from different periods of my life, So it's like maybe not now I'm struggling with some of the things that the characters are struggling with, but like Captain Kiwi, for example. He wants to put on this public face of, like, he looks like the all-American hero. He's tall. You can see him there on the screen. He's tall. He's muscular. He looks the part. He looks like a Captain Kirk. He looks like he should be able to, wrestle a giant monster with his bare hands and win. But he's actually a coward, and he actually feels like he doesn't measure up. He doesn't feel like he's good enough. And so I started asking myself, so there have been times in my life, sure, when I was an actor and, probably I was a bit more insecure and I didn't really know. And I was just kind of putting on the face, fake it till you make it kind of thing. So I kind of tapped into that a little bit, especially when you're younger, or you're in your early 20s or your teens, you want to look like you have it all together, but maybe you really don't. And you actually need to ask for help. And so that Captain Kiwi definitely resonates. Flash, sure. Who doesn't want to be the guy who just doesn't care and is just having fun? But then why? Why? So you start asking that question. Okay, this character, because like the trope is he's not self-aware. He doesn't care. He's just trying to have fun. But why? What makes the character want to just like not take life seriously? Why doesn't he take life seriously? Why is he avoiding responsibility? Why doesn't he want to get promoted? So then you start asking yourself why, and it's probably because his dad was super rich and put a lot of pressure on him, and he's just saying, I'm out in the Star Force just having fun, and nobody can tell me what to do, especially this incompetent captain. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just Flash. I want to have a good time. And then Natasha, then you start asking, why is Natasha so bitter and angry and kind of a sourpuss all the time? Because she doesn't trust anybody. Well, why doesn't she trust anybody? So see, you just think you go down this rabbit hole and you ask yourself, and Pablo, what's his deal? I mean, he can't just be a robot who's friendly and curious. Maybe he's a misfit. Why is he on this ship? Why doesn't Star Force put him on one of the big ships? He seems pretty competent. Oh, because he's kind of a klutz. He's way too curious for his own good. It gets him in trouble sometimes. And so that could be like my kids, like, so then you just kind of, and then, yeah. So like, and Dr. Drool, I mean, he's the ultimate. The villain is always the most, I know I'm going on a bit of a rant here.
No, I love it. Continue.
The villain is always the most interesting character in a show because why are they bad? Like, why is Dr. Drool bad? Like, you always have to ask yourself, like, I don't like these villains, especially in modern sci-fi or just in storytelling in general. Oh, he's just bad because he's bad. Well, no, that's lame. That's a cop-out to me. I feel like it has to be, why does he feel like he needs to do bad things? Well, Dr. Drool, I mean, there's a whole backstory, which I actually haven't gotten into in the show. I'd love to write that someday, the origin story of Dr. Drool. But it's because he's deeply insecure. And so he tried to be a good guy. I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler. He tried to be a good guy, and it didn't work out because he's ugly. I mean, and that's tough, So people look at him and go, look at him. Look at you. You must be bad. And so it's always like, but no, I'm actually a really good guy. I won't tell you why, because you'll have to watch Starship Coconut, because I do have that planned out at some point. But it's like, so now he does it to get attention, to get validation. He's like, if I can't win at being good, I'm going to win at being bad.
Yeah,
and so,
sorry, but that's kind of a theme between among the villains, right? I was reminding Megamind, right?
Yes,
Megamind is a really good example. He was ugly. He was put on the side. He didn't go to the good school.
Yep.
And then he just started doing bad things.
Totally.
He was blue. He was different, and that's why I said he was ugly.
Yeah.
And then he started doing bad things to get attention, and it took the whole movie to, in the end.
I haven't even seen that movie. Isn't that funny?
It is really funny. What is funny to me in that movie is that he creates another villain so that he could be the good guy.
Oh.
And then when he finishes the villain, everybody celebrates and put him in a good spot, so that he became the good guy. So it's kind of funny. Do you want to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
You say Megamind's ugly because he's blue. Well, Natasha Lux is purple. What are you going to say about her?
Exactly.
That's my question. What are you going to say about her now?
No, she's beautiful.
It's part of the reason she's also angry. No.
Yeah. So, what's funny about her is, there's only so much time in each episode, and so there's obviously all these things that I, as the creator, know that nobody else knows. And one thing was that Natasha can change her skin color to whatever skin color she wants.
Chameleon.
Yeah, so she can so she can change herself to whatever she wants. Yeah, like a chameleon, exactly. So she can be whatever it is. So that was going to bring up a whole. I mean, I was going to do her origin story in one of the one of the episodes too.
If you want, you can do origins for every character, and that would become a whole different podcast, a whole different show. But I want to go back to one thing, on your inspirations. And it's clear, I think we don't have to be a mad scientist to realize that you were very inspired by Star Wars, Star Trek. And I'm telling that because I heard on the CocoCast as well. But one thing, and I was listening to the last episodes on Spotify, and I noticed some references in my mind to Matrix. And I want to ask you,
absolutely,
how much, because I made a note. I don't know where my note is, but when I was listening, man, this sounds so Matrix. It has to be. It has to be.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Well, for sure. I mean, that was I think it was in the last episode where Pablo was going back to
Barbara.
Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Yeah. So, just for those of you who don't know, Barbara is the AI actually of Dr. Drool's spaceship. Interesting that we're talking about AI. So, and basically, she sort of has malfunctioned. Okay. I'll describe it even better than this. So, Dr. Drool is, he's really good at what he does. He's really good at being evil and coming up with the plan. But Rob, his assistant, the mongoose, basically he's the one who actually does everything. He's the computer programmer. He's the one who actually writes all the code and does all the computer stuff. And he's created the AI for Dr. Drool's chip and called it Barbara. And he's made her into his ideal girlfriend, basically. The girl that will want him and will serve him and will do whatever he wants and will never argue with him. But then what ends up happening is she goes haywire and basically takes over the mainframe of Pablo's main planet, because everyone on his planet is a robot and there's a central AI. And so she takes it over and starts deleting the main program of the Teflacons and going on this crazy rampage and basically trying to catch Rob and love him to death, basically, and hold him hostage. And so then Rob is like, oh no, I've totally screwed this up. And then at the end of it, basically she deletes the grand, what's his name again? I can't remember. The grand
I have it here.
Something. The grand something. I can't even remember now. It's been so long. But basically, he shuts down the grand AI of the entire planet and erases all the Teflacons' memories, so that Pablo is
Grand Delegator. Grand
Delegator. Yeah, so he's the one who delegates all of the tasks.
So that when I got to that point, I thought, and now I found my note here. Yeah. Because when you said the Grand Delegator, that sounded to me so much the architect, right? And then
oh yeah, it was intentional.
At that point, the Pablo seemed to me the Neo, like the chosen one, because he found himself in a new perspective. He was the different the different robot from its kind. And then he goes to the Grand Delegator. Yes. And the Delegator said, no, you are the first one to notice that. So you are the chosen one. Some
yeah, it was.
And then
he
started to fight Barbara.
Yeah, it was basically. Yeah, I mean, the idea of the Teflacons is they make their offspring. They build them from pieces. But then the Grand Delegator is the one who puts the code in them in order to sort of give them their life's purpose. But Pablo always felt like he didn't have a purpose and he didn't know why, or he didn't have a purpose where he would stay on the planet and do what his parents had done. And so basically he's like, why? Why did I always feel? So he's the only Teflacon to ever leave Teflacon Major, and he joins Star Force and joins the biologicals, they're called, anyone who's not a robot. And so he's like, why? Why is this? He's like, well, actually it was on purpose. I did this on purpose. There's a purpose to all of this. But of course, before he finds out what it is, cliffhanger.
Yeah,
it actually really was. I left the series on a cliffhanger. I actually did write the next episode. I mean, I planned out the next 3 seasons of the show. I've got it all written down. So yeah.
Dude, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jerry, but this is personal, right?
Right? He loves it. Dive in, dude.
I'm glad you love it so much. It's so fun to hear that someone else loved it.
I didn't watch, right? I
listen. It feels like you watched it because it's
exactly.
like a cartoon.
And you know what was very funny and very interesting to me was actually listening to the Coco Cast. I found that even more interesting because then I could hear your actual voice, your brother's voice.
And even some of the characters, we had some of the characters from the show on there.
And learn some of the backstories.
Well, it is funny because the entire thing, you were talking earlier about my brother and how did we creatively riff back and forth, and it started off with me making the story, but then after a while, my brother's humor just totally leaked. He's the funny one. I'm not the funny one. My brother's the funny one. But I'm the one who can. I always describe it like this. I'm the lore guy. I'm lore. I know what the characters ate for breakfast. I know where they come from. I know what their origin story is. I know what's going to happen 5 seasons from now. But my brother is the one who's like, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? And then I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, let's do that. That's way better than my idea. Let's go with that one. And it's always funnier than my ideas.
So how long did it take you to kind of learn to be open? I know for some creators, right, when they have that idea in their head and they kind of start building out the characters, when somebody mentions something like, that's not what I had in mind. How long did it take to you to get comfortable to be open to feedback from others to kind of inform the way of the characters?
Well, let me tell you this. I've never had an ego like about ideas, because I always feel like I don't even know how to describe this. Like, I don't feel like I'm the most genius person in the world. I feel like ideas, you can have a million ideas. It's about the execution and which ones you actually pick to go with. But I think like the collaboration, like I went into this to collaborate with my brother, to have fun with him. I mean, we weren't making any money, nor did we make any money from the show. Like, we didn't make any money from this. Wow. It was just more of we're going to do this just for fun, because we enjoy creating things. It ended up leading to a career in media production for me. But actually, what's really funny is when I created this as a project for my university project, my professor hated it. Can you believe it? He hated it.
I heard that in the CocoCast.
What? I couldn't believe that.
I know. What? He hated it because he said it was too commercial. He said, this is too Simpsons, Family Guy. And I'm like, perfect. That's what I want. That's exactly what I want. I want people to enjoy this. Like, it's popular culture. And he actually had, but to be fair, I'm not bitter at him, because actually some of the characters changed a lot from the original show. And I actually think it made it better. Yeah. Like, I had, it made it better. Like, for instance, Pablo. Originally, I had Pablo being a person. It was a human, and they had I don't know, like a certain type of accent. I can't remember what it was now. And it just wasn't as funny as a robot. So I just thought, okay, well, if we just change who they are and like make them into a robot, then I get to do the whole Data, kind of Spock character, Data character, I can go the robot route. That'll be more fun. And actually so, I don't know. So I went in that direction. But then also, what was his name? Admiral Hotchkiss. Admiral Hotchkiss, I kind of had him be like one of those characters, like the principal from the TV show Community. He was kind of like gay, and he was kind of like hitting on Flash all the time. And like, it was kind of funny, but what's even better than a pirate? I mean, come on, he's a pirate. That's even better. I can make him into a space pirate. So taking the feedback that I got, I thought, okay, well, if this person doesn't like this character, then maybe a lot of other people won't too. So I just thought, and I can be creative, and I'll just create a new character. And I created something even better. So I just thought, beautiful. Okay. So just throw it out and do what works for people. I want to call that out too to anybody who's watching this not live, right? That really stands out to me, and I highly encourage any creatives out there, put your stuff out. You're gonna feel a certain way. I did when I started too, but like, I agree with your sentiment. Get it out there, get people's feedback, and like, some people aren't gonna like it, right? Not everybody's gonna like it, but that is just learning. You're doing a focus group, a focus group of 1, right? And you got some information. You don't have, like you said, you didn't change the whole script because of it, but you thought critically about the direction of the characters, and it made you improve the outcome of the show. And first of all, I disagree. If he said that, don't be a bastard. I think he might have been jealous of your quality. I don't know if it was a pilot or what you have on the Spotify now, but if you showed that one to me, I would have been like, holy shit, how'd you do this? Not like it's bad, but still. No, and I just think I completely agree with what you just said. It's like, I just said, when my brother said, okay, let's do this, I wasn't thinking about money, marketing, demographics, any of that stuff. I was thinking entirely about, I just want to make something fun with my brother put it out there and make it as high quality as I possibly can, like do a good job of it.
And then,
that theory, if you do that, people will notice. And they and they
That's
did.
True.
They
That's
noticed.
True.
And they kept coming back. So come on, just do it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Thais has some questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
A character I thought was really interesting in your podcast was McDougal.
Yes.
I love McDougal. He's so funny, and he just appears out of nowhere. And
that was my brother. Yeah, he did him. See, there's a lot more to McDougal than you even know. And it's sad that I haven't been able to get there, but McDougal turns out to be one of the coolest characters in the entire show. And so eventually, someday, you're going to find out why McDougal is so special. So,
Nice.
but he's kind of he's like Jar Jar Binks. He's the key to everything. Just kidding. Star Wars
I have a
reference.
question. What like a species is McDougal? Because you have a prairie cat or prairie dog and a robot, an alien.
Yeah.
What's McDougal then?
I always imagined McDougal as a crazy old prospector kind of character where he wears like a cowboy hat, has a big beard, and he's just kind of that kooky old man who lives on the ship. But you know what is fun is that I'm open. I don't really know because we never really set it down in stone. He's that mystery character who just pops out of nowhere, and we never made him into a character. But I always imagined him as an old human, but he could be anything, man. Like, honestly, I'm open.
I have a very specific question about McDougal because
Sure. Yes.
we were in a festival a couple of months ago, Scottish festival, and
Yes.
one of the clans was
Clans?
the McDougals, and I
Yes.
saw that. Oh, is this where the McDougal come from?
Do you know what's funny is I have no idea where the name McDougal came from. It just kind of popped into my head. I mean, I saw it. I mean, because you see it, it's a very like my grandma's maiden name was McCleary, so I have a bit of Scottish in me, and so then you can see it in the red in my beard. But it's just like I have no idea. I just like the name. It just sounded funny, and is he even Scottish? He's Texan in the show, so I don't know. Like, I guess there's Scottish Texans. Why not?
It could be.
I don't know. It's also an accent that my brother could do. Like, he could do Texan, I could do Scottish. So you're always kind of like, I'm back. Because here's the thing. I had other people in the show, like I think Trixie Clementine. Who else was? My wife is in the show, but it's really hard to get her because I got 2 young kids. So like I had other people, like some of my friends from college were in it. The guy who played Radigan Splut was one of my friends from college. So like all these people, and it's hard. I don't want to make them a mainstay on the show because maybe I won't be able to get them in. So I don't want to write a plot and then not be able to have. So it would be like a 1 or 2 off episode. I'd have them come in. So.
And then when you when
ahead.
you write to this other folks, right? I know your third brother is also on the 11th episode, or
oh yeah, he is. Yeah, my youngest brother. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
home for the holidays, and so we just said, "Hey,
Exactly.
you want to be in my show?"
So when you are writing, so what is the process? You are writing here, and you think, oh, I want to have my other brother, I want to have this friend, I want to have that friend,
Great question.
or you are just writing, and then someone pops in, oh, you may be the voice that I'm missing for this character right here.
Right. Well, what became fun the farther the show went on is I never struggled for episode ideas because it would be like I know where the show is going because I always have an arc in mind, a season arc, and so I'm thinking, okay, we know what's gonna happen at the end of the season. I need to sort of get us there through hops and jumps. Introduce a new character, introduce a new concept in order to get to that end goal. But then you have to make every single episode an arc as well. Like you get the episode arc and then you've got the season arc. So I'm thinking and I think this way. I think very meta, I guess. And so I would be writing an episode and then I would go, okay, this needs to happen in the episode. And also, it's interesting that you mentioned Matrix and how you could tell that one of the episodes was inspired. What happened more and more was I would go, okay, I need this to happen in the episode, like the Temple of Tossed Sushi, for example. I wanted that to be my homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark. I wanted that to be Indiana Jones. I wanted to have an Indiana Jones episode where the boulder is chasing them, or they're trapped in a maze and they're being played with by a puppet master. And I wanted it to be sort of that supernatural Indiana Jones things where they have to solve mazes and puzzles to get through it. And then I go, okay, so that's sort of I have my inspiration. I have the plot points that I need to happen. And then I would think, do I know anybody who maybe could fit into this episode? Or I'm writing this character, and then I go, do I know anyone I could base this character on who is readily available, can do some voices, can act? I mean, that's super important.
Oh, it's huge.
Early on in the show, man, I cast some people just And it was just like, you know, it was hard. I had to coach them through every single line. You know, it was like 7 takes of the same line. And it's funny because I would be inspired by the person.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd go like, oh, this person like in real life is like this character that I want. But then when you get people in front of a microphone, they start acting very different.
Oh yeah, it's like when you
self-conscious.
It's like if you watch like Married at First Sight, you know, Europe edition, but the subtitles are in English, and it's like somebody saying it, trying to express the emotion. If you're not in it, right, I can see it just doesn't work.
So the way we would end up doing it is like I would act it out, and then they would act it back to me. And it worked. It worked well because I just found like, okay, just copy me, just copy what I'm doing, because I know I wrote this. I know what they sound like in my head and what the performance that I want. So, you know, and that's a rare thing.
That's like the director's cap, right? Too trying to coach the absolutely.
And so I would do it line by line, but I would eventually, to get back to your question though, eventually I would collaborate with the person I was going to have be the character. In that I needed the character to accomplish certain things, but I wanted to see what kind of twist they could put on it, what kind of backstory they could give this person. A perfect example of that was the episode where we had Flash's cousin Dash and his girlfriend Trixie Clementine. And I said, like, Trixie Clementine. And so these were 2 of my friends, completely didn't even know each other, recorded them separately. But I wanted to, like, who do you think this character could be? You know, here's the basic backstory.
That's cool.
All I had for Dash was, hey, he's Flash's cousin. It's kind of funny because I had all these different cousins for Flash because everything ends with Ash. So I could do Flash, Ash, Smash, WWF wrestler, Crash, Dash. So it was just like Dash. Okay, so he's a mechanic, and they need to fix their ship because in the last episode I destroyed the ship. So now we have to fix it. Okay, Dash. So then I go to him and I say, okay, what kind of voices can you do? What do you think this guy could be? And he was like, I want to make him Scottish or Irish. I want to make him Irish, and I want him to be like a, you know, knuckle fist fighter. And I'm like, perfect. So then Trixie, I'm like, well, I need Trixie to kind of be this like, she's larger than life. She's in charge. So she's like, oh, I'll make her like a, you know, one of those Southern belles who just like run everything and just tell the boys what to do. And she's big and voluptuous and just, you know, doesn't take any guff. And that's, I mean, the woman who played her was my best friend, one of my best friends from high school, and she's a 6'1", you know, Yugoslavian like opera singer. So like, you know, you just go or Serbian. I should say Serbian, but it's just like
be yourself. Be yourself.
She's larger than life, and she can do a Texan accent. Great, perfect. That's awesome.
And she played a song on that episode, her own song, right? She put the
that was a different person. That was that was my friend who was a jazz musician, and she was putting. Okay, that was the one where Scruffy. It was Scruffy who was this little, like, basically that was my homage to Alien. I did an entire one of Alien where this little tiny creature, they adopt it. They find it in space. They adopt it, and then it basically starts eating everything on the ship and like forcing and mind controlling the entire crew to create muffins so that it can keep on eating the muffins and getting bigger and stronger because it just wants to go home, back to its parallel universe home, you know, like that character, you know, like the Tribbles or something like that. But it's like Alien, so it's like so then, you know, the one character, what was her name again? I can't remember her name now in the show, but she was one of our friends who's a jazz musician. And so we just said, hey, we need to have a lullaby to put the alien to sleep because it likes music. So why don't you just sing your own song, and it can kind of be this like cross-promotional type thing. So yeah, you just kind of see, I already know these people. They're in my social network, and so why not? Let them create the character. Let them help me out.
That's good, though. I like that you kind of leave it open like that. And sounds like your friends are just as creative as you. You got jazz musicians and audio engineers in the family. Like,
well, and I found that worked better because otherwise, you want to have someone play someone that I have in mind. Well, they can't read my mind.
True.
So I kind of go, it would be a lot easier if we kind of create the character in collaboration with each other, just enough that, you know, I know you can play this person. I know you can do the accent and the voice. I know you have the energy level for it. So my brother, like our youngest brother, is not quite as crazy as us. So we just said, let's make him a normal character. Let's make him someone who's a bit more earnest and a bit more, you know, he's like a young intern. Well, that's perfect because that's more of his energy level. He's not quite as all over the place and Dr. Drool and Flash like me. You know, it's a little bit different. So, yeah.
In the episode, the tapioca job?
Yeah, the tapioca job. Yeah.
The casino's called Tapioca and Pearl. Why
Tapioca Pearl.
Tapiocan?
Well, I really like bubble tea. And so I wanted to do an entire.
I knew there was something to do with bubble tea. I was like,
Yeah.
he probably was drinking boba, and then he was like,
I used to go.
let's
I
just
used to
do
go.
tapioca
Yeah, because
Pearl.
there's the bubble baffians as well, right?
Yeah, the bubble bathians.
Are they
and-
tapioca bubbles?
No, the bubble bathians were more because I love sparkling water, like bubbly and stuff like that. And so that was just like, and bubbles. I just love bubbles. I just imagine they're just like a bubble planet covered in bubbles. So I'm just like, yeah, let's make an entire bubble
It exists
planet.
out there somewhere.
So-
I guarantee.
Why not?
The tapioca is interesting to me as well, because do you know what tapioca means?
Well,
Do you actually know?
I don't.
oh, like the actual word?
Yeah,
No, I have no
Because-
idea. What does it mean?
tapioca in our language, in Portuguese, it's a food. Interesting enough, it's a food. So it's made of a root. So cassava.
Oh, a root.
Yeah,
Cassava root?
Oh,
Tapioca bubbles, the thing you put in the bubble.
Yeah,
it's
but
edible. It is a food.
Yeah, but the actual where it's where
oh.
it comes from is from a root. So it's an actual food you cook, and then
Is it
That's so cool.
does it taste like? Is it like the boba where it's sort of like that chewy kind of? Is that what the
when
root
you
tastes like?
when you take the bubble, you taste the bubble, and you feel like the taste is whatever is in the tea.
Yeah.
So the
Oh,
tapioca is just the texture.
That's what I meant. Is the root the texture like the boba? Is it kind of chewy and?
well,
Not really.
no. So the roots is like very big. It's like this
Well,
big.
I mean, to me, I just wanted to have an entire planet, like a casino planet, run by mob bosses. I want it to be like the Italian Job. I mean, obviously that's why the Italian Job, and they were doing a heist. And they wanted
Tapioca
to-
job.
Yeah. So like, yeah, the Tapioca Job, and it
love
was
it.
just like the entire thing was just like The Godfather mixed with the Italian Job, which is one of my favorite. This is really weird. I like the remake of the Italian Job. It's like my guilty pleasure movie for some reason with Charlize Theron and the little
Yeah,
Mini
yeah.
Cooper.
That's
And
great.
I don't
the Mini
know why.
Coopers, yeah, I love those.
But I mean, that episode was so fun because we had like, how many songs did we have in that? We had so many songs, like
You
the
had
Cotton Candy,
Pearl,
yeah, the Tapioca Pearl song, which was
song
like a
and
big
the
Broadway
Cotton
number.
Candy Girls or
The
whatever
cotton,
it was.
yeah, the
Glitter. No, it was the glitter
Sparkle
puffs. The
Sparkle
glitter
Puffs, Sparkle Puffs.
Yeah.
And so it's like a sparkle band, and then we had a bubblegum pop band, and then we had like the DJ is called Glow Panda. He's basically a big gummy bear, and he talks like, "Hey, groovy." He talks like Elvis.
I gotta
and
get
so,
off
like,
it.
It's
The entire-
McDougal, isn't it? And when
yeah,
you,
it's
when
the
we
same
watch
voice
it,
as my brother. Yeah,
it's
he
the
sounds very
same
similar.
Voice. It's McDougal.
It's a little like McDougal. I
Maybe
gotta
it is.
figure
Maybe
out
that's
this.
secret. Maybe that's why he's special.
Well, the music of the show on itself would be
Yes.
an entire topic on itself. Like we could spend hours just talking about the music,
Hours.
because I cannot imagine how much work
Yes.
is to create the whole episode. Like,
Yeah,
because
all of
just
it.
the music, man, just
It's a
the music,
masterpiece.
one music.
My brother's a genius. What can I say? Like my brother created all the songs. He's so good with lyrics. He's so good at writing. Like I always just said, he should be one of those guys on YouTube who just creates silly songs because he's just absolutely hilarious. And we watched this show when we were kids called Veggie Tales.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
if you ever heard
Oh
of it.
yeah.
Love it,
I like too.
So yeah, and they had that segment where it was silly songs with Larry, and it was the cucumber character singing songs. And so it would be like he'd be singing like, "Oh, where is my hairbrush?" It would just be about his hairbrush, and it made absolutely no sense. But it was great. It was just so funny.
The what
Oh,
song?
where is my hairbrush? Oh, where is my hairbrush? Oh, where, 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 oh, where?
It's like Phoebe from
my hairbrush.
Friends. Then he can do the jingles.
Yeah.
What about
No, it was Nicholas.
what is
And then,
it?
actually, our favorite part of the show, you guys, was actually not the show. It was the commercials. The
Oh, yeah?
commercials were the best part.
I wanted to bring that up because Jeremy,
Favorite part.
I don't know how
Favorite thing
much
we did.
I don't know how much you listen to the show, Jeremy, but the commercials, you like the first time you hear that, you listen to the commercial, you don't even tell it is a commercial because they put a song. Oh, now is the time for the commercial, and that music, in
Bro.
the theme of the show, And then
I love that.
This character, like there's a character with the voice of the show talking about the commercial. So truth be told, that's the only commercial that I actually want to listen to.
Nailed it,
dude.
Nailed it.
So, David, I have to ask him, bro. I have to ask him this question. So, I have this soft spot in my heart for those little commercials, and it's not from GTA like a lot of people do. But I grew up with this game called, and I want to see if you're familiar with it. You Don't Know Jack. Have you ever heard of this game?
Sure.
Dude, and so they had these sections before the questions, right, with Cookie and stuff, and they would do these random commercials, and it sounds like there's a familiarity there, like where you dive in and you add this piece of lore almost, where it's like something attached to yours.
Well, it's in universe, so that was the whole point of it, was that we wanted to do the commercials as if it was from a business or an organization.
Wow.
In the actual universe. So we had, the Galactic Burger Company. We would it even gave them a jingle.
Oh, so you had the backstory
Galactic Burger Company. We make the best burgers in the galaxy. And then, or else you had Star Force. We had the Admiral trying to do the recruiting video for Star Force, and I would just do the.
Wow.
Do you want to have a source of adventure? Do you want to swab the poop deck? Well, then you should join Star Force.
It's just hilarious.
I love that.
We even did
part of the show.
One of my favorite characters was actually this character that never made it into the show. It was this character named Floopy, and Floopy was sort of like Itchy and Scratchy, where Floopy was constantly getting killed in awful ways. I just thought it was so funny. So he talked like this. He was like, "Hello." And you have no idea. It's sort of like the Swedish Chef, and you have no idea what they're saying. But then you kill them off in hilarious. So it actually did make it into one episode as a commercial where we were selling the DVD set of this famous actress of the silver screen, and her name was Floopina. And so it's so she was this multi-armed floopaloid, we called her, and then she was like, "Oh, Floopy, oh, Floopina, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." I was like, I ad-libbed this entire commercial, so even just played music in the background.
That's awesome.
And I would just go off, and it was the funniest thing ever. And it made it into the show.
He makes a really thick voice, and then it goes really thin, and then it goes back to really thick voice. It was hard.
I loved it. Yeah. Oh, Floopy, you're the most beautiful thing. Just anyway.
Since you are in between voices here, I would like to explore the.
Sure.
How is that singer voice? Because you mentioned about the false chord vocals.
Yes.
Yes. For one of the characters.
You really did your research.
Man, I listened to every episode. Literally.
Yeah, there was one character.
Sorry,
say again.
Sorry. We had a contract. That we would listen together. We were not allowed to listen by ourselves. So I cheated, and in order to be prepared for this show, I actually had to listen by myself because we didn't finish the last episode or something like that.
You told me to finish watching it actually, so it's kind of your fault.
Yeah, so it's my fault, but I
agree.
I wanted to
guilty.
But yeah. So tell me about the
well there was one character named Grog, and Grog was this, basically he's a giant, he's sort of like Ego from Marvel now, but I didn't know this was before Marvel came out with that, and it was this giant furry monster, cookie monster type character who just eats asteroids, because all the asteroids are made out of cheese. So everything in the universe is made out of food. That's basically, I held to that more and more as I went along in the show. It was kind of loosely there, but now it is. And so Grog, for his character, I've always been able to do the Louis Armstrong voice. And so Louis Armstrong had this really interesting thing where he wasn't using his vocal cords the way we understand them. Humans actually have two sets of vocal cords. I didn't know if you knew this. We have the ones that you hear, like the one I'm using right now, but then they also have this other set of vocal cords that you can actually use, and that's what Louis Armstrong would use. And so I can actually do it right now. I'll just do it right now. It's kind of hard to do, but basically you talk like this. How does that do? Okay, so the way he would talk is I would just do it really, really deep, and then I would go, I'm trying to remember. I'm Grog! It probably just peaked like crazy. But
No, it's
basically,
good. You're good.
But basically, it's just it's this thing that I can tap into. Now I can't do it for very long because my voice gets tired. But basically, you just take the volume level down pretty far, and then you just do it, and then you can make it sound absolutely massive by just adding reverb and extra stuff on top of it, and gating it a little bit, and pulling up the bass quite a bit. So yeah, it's Louis Armstrong, and I can do Louis Armstrong. And I said, hey, let's just. It was one of the first voices I could do that was really unique, and so I pull it out every once in a while just for fun.
and you had that you had or your brother had some special effects on the voices as well, right? Because I know Pablo was your brother's, right?
Yep.
And it was just his real voice, and
Normal
he had some effects. So
it would be a bit different. It would be a bit different. It would be like he would kind of make his voice sound a little bit more nasally. So it's sort of like Kermit the Frog, but then he would kind of like keep everything really short and really innocent, and keeping it really, really high up in his voice. And he just sounds like he just loves to be there, and he's so happy all the time. And then he would just add the robotic effects after that. So yeah, on top of it.
Nice.
I love
and then
Pablo.
you would just add the effects in the end.
I love Pablo. I think Pablo is like the kindest person in the entire universe.
He's not a person, he's a robot, though.
That's probably why he's the kindest. Probably.
He's just so kind. He's just so nice, and he's so
Pablo,
lovable.
You know what? Pablo to me is one of the best characters in the show.
Yeah.
And when I listened to the last episode, the 12th episode, where he became this figure, like the chosen one.
Yeah.
That made a whole lot of sense to me. And
you weren't surprised by that? That's cool.
That was really surprising. And as I was listening to the episode and making this, like as we were talking, this link to Matrix, and he's the chosen one, and he's going to fight the.
You would love the next episode, because we actually did record. It's kind of the lost episode where. He goes in to fight Barbara. He goes into the Matrix basically in the next episode,
that brings me to the next question, which is, I missed the ending, right?
I know. So left it on a cliffhanger.
So everything was going nicely and smoothly, and then it didn't.
It just stopped.
It just stopped.
Well, there's a reason. There's a reason for that. It's because the pandemic hit. Exactly at that moment. And what was funny was that we had actually signed up. This was back in 2019, 2020, right? We actually had been invited to do a show at Comic-Con in Toronto. And we were going to do a live show.
Oh, wow.
And we were going to do an episode where it's the origin story of the Starship Coconut crew. It was going to be like a prequel to the entire show. And we were going to talk about Dr. Drool and how Drool and Rob got together and how Barbara was created. And it was going to go into some things that, like, they were just so awesome. And I wrote it. We actually recorded a lot of it, but it was going to be live. So we had these little segments that we'd done.
Yeah. Your commercials to inject between.
Yeah. The commercials. We also had some other characters. So we were going to do a whole live show with live special effects, but then Comic-Con was canceled that year.
So you were going to do it at Comic-Con? I didn't even catch that earlier. So you're live. I didn't hear Comic-Con. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
We were going to do it live, and then the whole world shut down for 2 years. And we had actually, what's fun is we had taken the show and we had pitched it to a bunch of animation studios, actually. And they took our call, which was cool. Like, we got to pitch it to the guys who made SpongeBob SquarePants, and we got to, go to some of the animation studios in Toronto, and but just everything was shut down. So it really,
kind of. I know a lot changed in the world during that period. Did you I'm a fan of this show. So any influence from Rick and Morty? Any influence?
Well, my brother loves Rick and Morty.
Okay.
Who is that? I don't know.
He loves Adventure Time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not as up on the new cartoons, so it's funny when he showed me them. I'm like, oh yeah, that's basically what this is. So my brother definitely injected that in there. I'm more classic. I'm like Star Wars, Star Trek, Indiana Jones.
I have to say,
Monty Python. There's a bit of Monty Python mixed in there.
Whatever, I have to say, like whatever you've done, keep that up, because from what I've heard, incredibly impressive. And just hearing Joe and his daughters, vibe on what they got out of the show. Like, I need to go get more now. I'm going to listen to another episode tonight. I want to dive in. But what's the plans for the future? I know it sounds like you got a kind of a wrench thrown in, but there's no doubt you're incredibly creative, and this show has potential, and you are not done in your brain, right? It sounds like you have thoughts. So what's next? Where does it go from here? What are you thinking?
Well, I've planned out the entire season, and I always just said, well, what ended up happening, is that because I made this thing, we made it high quality.
Absolutely.
We put it out
high quality.
We put it out into the world. People noticed. We won an award, Best Fictional Podcast of 2019 on Apple Podcasts.
Wow.
Canadian,
wow.
Canadian Apple.
I don't care if it was Montana. That's it's still incredible.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
We were signed by the Frequency Podcast Network, which is with Rogers Media. And so we were meeting with people, and it was great. It was going really, really well. But then but then of course the pandemic happened, the whole world shut down. But then I switched because of the show and the strength of the creative. I got a lot of jobs.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities.
I worked for a YouTube channel called Underknown for a while, for about a year, and they have about 7 million subscribers, and they do basically what if scenarios, hypothetical science scenarios, like what if the moon crashed into the earth, what if all the volcanoes erupted, and basically my pitch to them,
was it Kazkazar? I messed it up, but yeah.
Absolutely. So
cool.
So like it was huge, and they're in Toronto, and basically my pitch was, well, if I can make Starship Coconut, I can make this. They said, well, you're weird, come work for us. I mean, you obviously have a great imagination.
Yes.
So I did that. And I also started getting into creating scripts for like making podcasts and videos and animation, because I know how to do all those things for companies. And so I started working with companies and did more corporate stuff, and my career really took off. And I got into e-learning for a while, where I was a lot of e-learning companies and doing voiceovers and videos and podcasts for them.
That's so nice.
Yeah, so it really worked out, and then I was too busy doing those things, and so I wasn't able to work on Starship Coconut. But my brother and I have both said, like, we're both trying to find alternative ways to get back funding to be able to get back into just doing what we love to do creatively again.
That's so awesome. I think you have that opportunity in your future. There's no doubt that there's this fire that burns inside of you and sharing these stories, and there's no doubt I can't imagine the experience that you've been gaining in the industry and what that's going to do to the quality of the product that you produce. Because I mean, Jeebus, I like, from what I'm seeing, like what I saw, like, ladies and gentlemen, like if you're hearing this like on Spotify, just go and give this podcast 5 minutes and you won't turn it off. Like the production quality is that incredible. And I'm telling you, as someone who just binges YouTube and tries to find those kernels of people that have got it, just haven't had that shot yet, this is that space. I'm telling you, this, like, he has it. You've been gaining some skill. It's impressive, dude. And I'm definitely excited to see with season 2, season 3. Now you've gotten your tools, your pencil sharpened. I can't wait to see where this story goes.
You know, one very funny thing, Jeremy, is that when you listen to the podcast, you think, oh man, there is an entire crew working on the background.
Right? Industry plant. That's what I think.
It's so perfect.
Two people.
It's so perfect.
Two.
And when you listen to the credits, it's just David and Steven, like just the two. Like, of course, you have your guests, that do voiceovers and acting.
Yeah. And we're so thankful to them for doing it for free. It was amazing.
Who wouldn't? That's cool.
It's just you two, right? So that must be very, very challenging. So I cannot imagine how much work it is. And at some point you were doing bi-weekly episodes, right?
Yeah, it was. I think there was the pressure, because, and I learned a lot from this experience about how would I do things differently if I were to go back and do it again? I mean, I didn't know anything. I just thought I want to make a half an hour show, not knowing how hard that is to do. And I mean, there was a certain amount of burnout. I mean, I'll be honest, because, it got to the point where the storytelling got so big, and my brother's like, we can't put out a 45-minute episode every 2 weeks. That's impossible. So what I would probably do now is I would probably break it up into much smaller sections and, put it out once a week, maybe 5 minutes of audio, 10 minutes of audio, maybe do a scene or two.
Yeah.
Or you go the route of doing YouTube, because I think it's really hard to fund podcasts. It's hard to find sponsors. It's hard to find, you need a lot of listeners in order to get enough ad revenue in order to actually, because, with like YouTube, we're talking like tens of thousands of viewers, with the podcast, you're talking way more than that to get any kind of money flow going. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Totally agree.
It's hard. It's a hard world.
I know, right? Speaking of that, before we wrap this up, because Dixie's going to be knocking on my office quick. I have to throw in some sort of technology. So with all this GPT and AI stuff, and obviously these kinds of things, even creating music now that you've had a time to refine your skill set, do you have any plans to leverage generative AI or to help support your script? Or are you still going to be straight human, from start to cut? What's your philosophy when you start creating? Are you going to leverage those tools or?
Right. Well, with Starship Coconut, I think it was, again, a labor of love. So it wasn't talking about, like wanting to make it even commercially viable. Wasn't really the goal of this. In my work as a multimedia creator, I've definitely bumped up against, AI and, against using that for voice generation even. I mean, there were some projects where we would go into clients, especially for my e-learning clients. You'd kind of go in and say, well, we can either have option A, option B, because we're always thinking about cost benefit analysis here.
Yep.
So it's just sort of like, okay, do we want a live person to do the voiceovers for your project? Or do we want to maybe harness AI in order to, get the project done?
Mm-hmm.
And so we would use quite a few AI generated voice softwares in order to actually do this. The issue with it was, like you can have, it's pretty realistic. It can sound pretty good. It had its limitations in the projects we were working on. So it was a bit more like it would sound pretty natural until it didn't.
Yeah.
Until something went wrong, or the algorithms didn't understand the word, or the punctuation wasn't quite read right, or it just didn't feel quite as natural. And you could always kind of tell that it wasn't real just because the intonation wasn't quite on. So, and it was struggling with like scripts for, teaching like technical manuals or something like that. I don't think it's quite there yet to be able to, do Starship Coconut. Like if I wanted a robot voice, yeah, for sure. Maybe I'd use AI, but my brother can do it just as well, monotone, and we can get it in one take.
Authentic
so
too. Yeah.
It's authentic. It sounds more, and also with Starship Coconut and comedic storytelling, you almost don't want it to sound too natural. You kind of want it to sound like, if we're gonna do a robot, we kind of want it to be a human making fun of a robot. Like that's kind of So Pablo doesn't sound like an AI, or Barbara doesn't sound like an AI, because it's not monotone. It's supposed to be funny. Barbara's flirting with Rob and is actually more expressive than Rob. Like Rob is probably the most robotic character in the entire thing. That's kind of what makes it funny. So as far as storytelling, but maybe in terms of artwork, maybe in terms of branding, social media stuff.
Smart.
Being able to leverage it for that. I mean, like I created the logo for Starship Coconut on Photoshop and Illustrator, like I created it personally, but I was always like trying to basically stick a background on there that would kind of be reminiscent of what we're talking about, and then put the Starship Coconut logo on top of there.
Yeah.
I think AI could do that no problem.
Yeah.
And actually give me a whole bunch of ideas. Like I was really getting into Adobe's AI and
nice,
what they were doing.
And it does that.
I think some of the issues though that I'm having with Adobe is this like who owns it? That's so true. Who owns this content? Because technically I didn't create it, and so it's not my original work, because I'm kind of getting this AI to come in and like kind of be my co-pilot sort of.
Right.
And so copyright gets into being a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
So then I just kind of went, I'd rather just create it myself. But man, like especially when you're a 2-person team, you don't have time.
Yeah.
I got to get this episode out. I got to create some artwork. I got to throw up a social media post. I can see the use for that. Would I use it to create a script? Probably not, because it's very particular. But if it was more like an informational thing, yeah, I probably use it for that. But I think it works in some use cases.
Know how to use it. No, for sure.
Know how to use it and what it would be good at. Like if it's an informational video on YouTube, sure, no problem. But if it's a comedic starship science fiction thing, I mean, that's why people listen, because I think there will always be a place for human originality.
I love it. I agree. Yeah. I've used it. I've used just one thought too. I've used it like on Artlist.io. They have the ability where you can text to create voices, and I can put them in a YouTube video. Sure. But I found no matter how I tried to massage that voice to make it have the emphasis I want, or to bring out like, if I have a theme and the theme is the tuna tower, the tower, not the tuna, or the tuna, not the tower, needs to be emphasized. It's so hard to have AI.
But you can't coach
share that story.
It's not as like, I wish that there was a tool where you could, say put the emphasis here, put the information there, or even, and actually, there was this tech demo. I don't know if you saw it years and years ago at the Adobe Max conference, which I'm like addicted to. I watch it every year religiously. And because it's always like the new tech coming out. And it was this one where they could correct what the person said or make them say something that they didn't say. And it was just like, I don't remember what it was called, Adobe Echo or something like that. I can't remember what it was, because they have like code names. And it was like, they took someone's voice, they took like a sample size of maybe like 3 sentences, and then they were able to like put words in that they didn't even say. And I thought, well, that could be useful, because what if you got the perfect take except for that one word, or you mispronounced that one thing, and I think, well, that would be useful just to be able to, throw that in there. But again, copyright,
still
the amount of abuse that could be thrown in there, making people say things they didn't say.
True.
Exactly. Yeah,
there's a lot of ethical issues involved with that. So,
but your take on AI is so true to me, because I have the same feeling, because if you put an AI just to read a technical manual or something like that, just voiceover, a course or a short video, some marketing material, it would be fine. But I cannot imagine an AI doing the Captain Kiwi voice.
No, wouldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
Or any of
it can't do it.
It cannot do it, right? It's
well,
just,
and even
there's no feeling on that.
Well, I can't prove it. I can't prove this, but I watch a lot of modern shows, science fiction, because I'm a huge science fiction nerd, obviously. So then I look at it and I go, there are some shows that I swear have been written by an AI.
Yeah.
Because you watch it and you're like, it's soulless. They didn't take any risks. It feels like it's just been, it's all of the beats are exactly where they're supposed to be on the minute. But then the writing is clunky because it doesn't feel human. And
where's
you're like,
the story?
Where's the story? Like, I mean, like, I don't like, I'm not a huge fan of modern Star Wars, but I just, I'm not going to, we could spend an entire podcast.
That's another one, right?
What I mean?
You have a Coco cast almost entirely on the Star Wars.
Okay, I do. I actually do. Okay, so I've already ranted on this, but it's just, it's gotten even worse. You just go, I understand using AI as a starting place for a story.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like, okay, I need to do this, and this. Maybe like an outline. Maybe I can like throw my random thoughts in there. But like if you look up on my board here, there's nothing that's going to replace cards, random ideas,
I love
two
it.
brothers going back and forth with each other, trying to make each other laugh. Because that's human connection. We're never going to go to a comedy club to watch C-3PO give a comedy routine.
Hey, true.
We're not going to. We're going to go watch Jerry Seinfeld because he makes observations and he just something an AI wouldn't even notice.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree. Hey, anyway. I'm so sorry, guys. My old man bladder is literally gonna leak any second now because of the root beer. But Joe, do you have any closing thoughts when you wrap this up?
I do. Of course, I do. I wanna first of all thank for my daughter to be here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
To me, it's kind of a moment where I can work, because this is a work for us, right? Even though we are drinking, but I'm working here, next to my daughter, and she's enjoying with me. So that's really
great.
Enjoying, that's my British accent. So it's a really awesome feeling, and next, I want to thank you, David.
Yes, thank you, David.
My
You
pleasure.
did such a good work with Starship Coconut. It's such an amazing show. So awesome to listen to follow, and to put your mind to work and kind of try to draw the images, and then you get the picture of the characters that we have on the background here. So that's a really awesome work. So thank you for putting that together. And yeah, that's
well, thank you. Well, thank you so much for listening to it. It makes me so happy to hear that somebody else got what I was trying to do and just enjoyed it, and it brought people together. I mean, man, I would have like, my friends, 7, 8-year-old sons taking pictures and sending them to me of Captain Kiwi fighting with a monster or
so
something
cool.
like that. Or like they have their favorite character. And I just was like, oh, that's so fun that I was able to share what was in here with them and it resonated with them.
Man.
I mean, it was
totally.
That's, and at some point in the future, I hope I can get back to just creating things just for the pure love of creating.
Well, that's what I was
life is about.
That is true. I agree with you so much. And that's why we're doing this show, right?
Good.
But I tell you right now, David, if you ever start season 2, you start and you carry this thing through, please tell us, get back on the show. We want to hear about it. I want to, and I'm going to tell you here live, put my name down on the list. If you have a character that you think fits, I would love to hop on. I want to be the lore. I want to join. I want to be a part of it, David. But
That's great.
And with us here,
She wants to.
Yes.
Go ahead.
if you have any characters you want us to do, I'm free to do it. He might be a chicken.
There you go. And she's before me. So if one shot gets it, she gets it before I do.
Sounds great. I'll keep you both in mind. That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for this
Beautiful.
opportunity to be on the show.
David, last
Hey.
question here. Are you
Yes.
thinking of doing cartoon? Like a cartoon? Like a TV show?
Yeah,
like that?
we took it to animation studios and we pitched it, and we're still open to talking with people about that, of course, So if anyone wants to check out the show, starshipcoconut.com. It's up there, or just wherever you can hear podcasts. But yes, absolutely, we would love to make it into an animated show. Yeah,
I hope
Starship
so.
Coconut will live on somewhere, somehow.
Yeah, definitely. Please keep it on. Keep it on.
There we go. Thank you so much, Joe. I do medical. My bladder is gonna explode, man. I gotta get out of here. Swear to God. Joe, David, thank you so much. Everybody
Thank you.
listens.
Thank you
Have
both.
a good one. Get us out of here,
pleasure.
assistant.